everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Claire and I put out videos about luxury bags and accessories. So if that is your thing, please click on the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and you'll know when I upload a new video. Welcome to my Louis Vuitton in Paris story time. Now, I mentioned this in my Louis Vuitton unboxing. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it down below. Please go and check it out because this video will make kind of more sense to you if you've actually watched the unboxing. Yes, I did my Louis Vuitton unboxing of the items I bought in Paris, and I did promise you a story time regarding some of those items. Let's start off by saying, yes, I had a fabulous time in Paris, and one of the things that some of us had the opportunity to go to was a VIP appointment at Louis Vuitton in Paris. Now, that was just a dream come true for me. I am not a Louis Vuitton VIP, not by any stretch of the imagination. I have purchased Louis Vuitton over the years, but nowhere near enough to be considered a VIP of the house. So, you know, if you'd have asked me a few years back, you know, would you ever have the opportunity to go to a VIP appointment, I would have said, of course not. No, that's something that I will never get the opportunity to do. However, I did, and it was thanks to the wonderful Meredith from the channel Living Luxe with Meredith and her amazing sales associate in Sydney, Peter. They set up this VIP appointment for us. Now, obviously, Meredith was supposed to be at that VIP appointment. It effectively was her appointment, and she was allowing the rest of us that wanted to tag along and you know, take advantage of the sales associates that were there to help her, and they would be there to help us, and we could request items in advance, etc. Sadly, she couldn't come, as I'm sure all of you know, because of illness. We were all absolutely devastated, gutted when we found out that was the situation. But Meredith and Peter kindly arranged with Louis Vuitton in Paris for the appointment to still go ahead. We, you know, would have been absolutely fine if it needed to have been cancelled. We would have understood, but you know, to our delight, it still went ahead. So we were so grateful. As I said, regarding the appointment, we did have the opportunity to request items in advance, and we had like a little WhatsApp group going where we could request items. So there was lots of requests coming back and forth, and the sales associate confirming things and confirming whether things were available, whether they would be there in Paris or not. Now, at one point, with plenty of notice, I did give my requests in. I requested a couple of items of ready to wear, some sunglasses, some belts, and some shoes. I can't remember if there was anything else. I think that was it at that point. And I said, you know, if you've got these available, I would love to be able to have a look at these. Now, when I got to the appointment, none of them were there for me. And I think, I don't know for definite, but I think it was a combination of two reasons. I think some of the items were definitely out of stock. I found that out when I got there, and as many of my friends have said in their videos, a common theme of the trip, particularly in Louis Vuitton, was, oh yeah, we don't have this anymore, this isn't in Paris, there's none in France, or it doesn't exist in Paris or France anymore, it's completely sold out. That was a bit of a theme of the trip, and also in other luxury houses as well, in some of the other luxury houses, but particularly in Louis Vuitton, there just was a lack of stock. And I don't know if that was because we went the wrong time of year or what it was, but yeah, so when I got there, I definitely knew that some of the items I'd requested were out of stock. Some of the items, however, were available in the Vendôme store where our appointment was, and I went down to the accessories department and I found some of those items that I had requested. I think the other reason that perhaps the items that were there perhaps weren't there ready for me is, I think, unintentionally, no blame on anyone, I think the message that I sent requesting items got missed. I honestly think that, because I sent the message, it was a couple of weeks before the sales associate was due to go on holiday. She didn't acknowledge my message and say, oh yes, we do have this or we don't. She went on holiday, and I kind of think to myself, I wonder if she meant to look at it when she got back from holiday, and it just completely slipped her mind when she got back. Whether there were more messages then with new requests from people that mine just got accidentally missed. So I don't think there was any ill intention there, any, you know, nefarious reason why my items weren't there. I think it was just a combination of my requests getting caught up with other requests and accidentally getting missed, plus items being out of stock. But it really wasn't an issue. Everything I'm talking about, I'm going to caveat all of this by saying, you know, this is a fun story time about some of the things that happened while we were in Paris and trying to find Louis Vuitton items. You know, none of these items we needed, you know, they weren't desperately required. They were things we wanted, and there were some fun times acquiring these items. It really is a first world problem that my items I requested weren't there when I got to the appointment. However, I was able to go downstairs. I went to the ready-to-wear with a different sales associate, somebody else that was on our appointment helping us, as well as the one that we'd been chatting with. I did go down to ready-to-wear. I would say I asked her some questions about ready-to-wear, because at least one of the items I'd requested was in the ready-to-wear department, and there was another item I'd requested, a denim jacket. The specific one I wanted was out of stock, and I said to her, I assume this is out of stock because I know it's a previous season, and she said yes, it is. They did have a different denim jacket out for the current season. So I did ask her some questions about the ready-to-wear, and all I'd say there is she wasn't particularly helpful on the ready-to-wear. She didn't really help me very much. She didn't answer my questions. I don't know if it was a language issue and she didn't understand my questions, but I did think her English was quite good. Obviously my French is appalling, so you know, I couldn't ask her in French. Or maybe she just didn't have the knowledge of the ready-to-wear. Maybe it just wasn't her department and she didn't have the knowledge. But I found myself not really getting answers, so I kind of gave up in the ready-to-wear in the end, to be honest. It wasn't a case of a pretty woman moment where she thought maybe, oh, you can't afford ready-to-wear, so I'm not going to bother talking to you about it, because we went downstairs and she clearly thought I could afford fine jewellery, because she was really trying to sell me fine jewellery. She was really trying to push the fine jewellery. So I don't know if the fine jewellery was her department and she knew lots about it. She was very knowledgeable about fine jewellery and she was trying to sell me fine jewellery. I wasn't particularly interested in Louis Vuitton fine jewellery. That's not what I really wanted. So I went and looked at the sunglasses, the belts, some small leather goods, that sort of thing. And then I found at least one belt that had been on my wish list, and I found one pair of sunglasses that had been on my wish list. So she kindly brought them upstairs for me back to the VIP suite, where we then had our champagne and some madeleines, and some of the others that did have ready to wear that they had requested were trying on items, and there was a big mirror that they could look at the items they were trying on. And again, I tried on my belt and my sunglasses. As you know from my unboxing, I got the belt. I really liked the belt. The sunglasses weren't quite the right shape for me. Lisa from Luxury and Life in the Middle, she was trying on a different pair of sunglasses, more aviator kind of style, and I tried those on and they looked really good. I really did like them. And again, the sales associate was trying to sell them to me. She was saying how amazing they looked and I should get them. They did look good, but I knew they weren't quite what I wanted, and I knew even if I bought them, I'd go away and I would still want those cat's eye ones that I ended up buying. I would still buy those, so I'd end up with, you know, buying two pairs of sunglasses rather than just buying the pair I wanted in the first place. So I politely declined and said no, I'm not going to buy them, and I thought I'm going to carry on looking in other Louis Vuittons in the city to see if I can find the cat's eye sunglasses. And you know, the fact was as well that quite a few of the Louis Vuitton items that I wanted to look at were still available on the UK website. So, you know, again, I didn't get too upset about things, because I thought, well, if I can't get this in Paris, obviously it would have been nice to get these things in Paris, but if I can't get them in Paris, I can get them back in the UK from the UK website, so I can always order them when I get home. So that was the VIP experience. So, you know, I've still managed to try on some things that were on my wish list that I wanted to look at. I was very happy to get my belt. I really, really like my belt. And yeah, the whole experience was really good. As I say, I've never been to a Louis Vuitton VIP appointment before. I was very excited about having the opportunity to go to one. I never thought, you know, I ever would, and so it was just a really great experience. And as a group, we had fun and we created some great memories at that appointment. So that was the appointment day. That was the Tuesday. The following day was the Wednesday, and that was our last full day in Paris. And that was the day where we had a bit of a mad dash around different places to get the things that we still wanted that we'd kind of held off getting. So for example, we'd been to Louis Vuitton in Galeries Lafayette and we'd seen quite a few things that we all liked, but we wanted to wait to the VIP appointment before we purchased anything, because we thought, right, well, we've got a number of things we're looking at the appointment. Some of the items are the same as what we've seen in Galeries Lafayette. We want to see them at the appointment and ideally buy them at the appointment. So therefore, things that we still wanted that we hadn't been able to get at the appointment, we needed to go and see if we could get them elsewhere, as I say, in the city on the Wednesday. So one of the first stops for myself, Deb and Lisa was Avenue Montaigne Louis Vuitton. So I hadn't been to the Avenue Montaigne store at that point. This was my first visit to that store. So we went in and we had a lovely sales associate. Lisa was trying on some clothes, myself and Debs were looking at different things, and I saw the sunglasses, and I saw that they had the cat's eye version of the My Monogram sunglasses. I tried them on, I showed Deb, I said, I think these are the ones I like. I said, I think they're better than the round ones yesterday. I said, I'm really happy that these suit me more than the round ones. I'm going to get those. And she agreed. She said, yeah, she said, I think they look good on you. If those are the ones you want, you should definitely get those. Then we were looking at just some of the fun items in Louis Vuitton, and we saw the little cuddly Viviennes, the soft toy, the plushies, the Doudous as they're called, the little Viviennes. Now the day before we had been in the gift store and we had seen the very large version and we'd seen the medium version, and when we went to the VIP appointment we had the medium version waiting for us because we had the idea to purchase that as a gift for Meredith, as I mentioned on my unboxing, and we had purchased that between us as a gift. And I saw this small one. I hadn't seen the small one before, and I was like, oh, they do it in a little really diddy version, and you know, I quite like it. And I'm not a Vivienne person. Again, as I said on the unboxing, I've not really been a Vivienne fan over the years. You know, she's okay, she's cute, she's nice. I've never been one of these people that's rushed off to buy Vivienne products. I have to say though, the day before, Amelia Rose from Amelia Rose's Closet had her little orange Alma with her Vivienne charm on it, and I just kept looking at that Vivienne charm and thinking, that is gorgeous, that is so nice. And I actually kept thinking to myself, do you know what, it's worth buying a Louis Vuitton mini Alma or nano Alma just to get a Vivienne charm to go on it, which, you know, crazy thoughts, but that's the power of influence, isn't it? When you go out with your friends like that and you see something and I just saw how cute it was and how well she wore it and styled it. I was like, yeah, it's very cute. So and then obviously that day I'd also seen all the wooden Viviennes and I'd seen the soft toy Viviennes, so I'd obviously had a bit of an overload of Vivienne. So the following day I saw this mini Vivienne and I was really taken with it. And as I said again, I'd just been doing my dressing room and I had this kind of corner unit idea which I was displaying Labubus on, and I just thought, do you know what, it would be so cool to, on the top of that, to have this little Vivienne soft toy, to have my photograph of the group of us in New York from last year, and my Hermes candle. I just thought that would be the perfect sort of trio of items on the top of that, and then underneath I've got some of my more rarer Labubus and some of my other just sort of normal Labubus. And so yeah, I was talking to Deb about this and she said to me, you're imagining it, aren't you? You're seeing it. And I'm like, yes, I'm seeing it in my house and I'm seeing exactly where it would go. But you know, it's a lot of money. I'm not the sort of person that goes and buys these sort of things. You know, I save my luxury money for really useful items, you know, items that I will use, like, you know, small leather goods or handbags, obviously, you know. I said, I don't usually, you know, buy luxury bag charms, luxury, you know, ridiculous items as I call them. But you know, again, the power of influence. A lot of my friends recently have been buying, you know, handbags that are just so fun. I mean, Dale from Dale's Addiction recently bought a bunch of grapes. You know, Meredith again recently unboxed wicker dinosaurs. You know, Gwenny bought the pigeon like Dale's. You know, and I think, you know, all these people are rubbing off on me, and I'm finally thinking to myself, do you know what, I've got a lot of beautiful luxury items that are useful. You know, my card holders, my pouches, my jewelry, my bags. I'm very fortunate. I've got a lot of really useful items that I do use all the time. You know, maybe I should have a bit of fun. Maybe I should buy something that's a bit of fun. And at that point, we decided to go for some lunch, and Lisa and Deb said to me, have a think about it over lunch and then we'll come back and, you know, and you can get your sunglasses and potentially get Le Doudou if you want to get it, if you decide to get it. And yeah, we walked out and we went and had some lunch. And really, by the time I sat down for lunch, I'd pretty much decided that I was going to get the Doudou. So here is the Doudou. As in my unboxing, she doesn't show up very well because of the lighting, but if I kind of give you a close-up, there she is. So I did get her, but it wasn't as simple as finishing our lunch, going back to Avenue Montaigne and buying her. Because we walked back into Avenue Montaigne, the people on the door straight away sort of said to us, how can we help you? Said, oh, we've come back to make a few purchases, and previously we were talking to this sales associate, and I honestly can't remember his name, but he was very nice. And I was standing in the sort of entrance, and I looked to my right, and out of the corner of my eye I could see a Doudou still sitting there in one of the Louis Vuitton trunks. There were two trunks, and they had the pink Doudou and the beige Doudou, and I decided it was the pink one I wanted, because they do the Doudou with a beige head as well as a pink head, but I decided I wanted the pink head. So I could see both of the Doudous still sitting there. They got the sales associate. He said, come over and sit down. And I said, oh, I'd like to buy the sunglasses and I'd like to buy the Doudou. And he said, well, if you'd like to go and just get the sunglasses that you want, he said, I'll go and get the cuddly toy for you. So I went and got my sunglasses. I brought them back. As he went and as I came back, Deb came rushing over to me and she said, it's gone, it's gone. She said, the Doudou's gone. And I said, what do you mean? I said, no, he's just going to get it. I said, I just saw it there, he's going to get it. No, she said, a woman picked it up, a woman picked it up, she's got it, someone else has got it. Okay, and I sort of like walked to where the sales associate had gone, to the trunks, and I could see he was walking around with a very confused look on his face. And I said to Deb, well, maybe he'll find another one for me. And she said, well, she said, it's gone over, she said, the woman took it over there, let's go and have a look and see what's going on. So we walked round the corner to another area. Now this area was totally deserted. There were two counters in a slight L shape, and the whole area was completely deserted. There were some people sort of further down looking at some bags with a sales associate, but this area we were in, nobody, no sales associates, no customers. There were two counters, and on one of the counters was the Doudou. She was just laying on the counter. Absolutely nobody around. So Debs and I just kept looking all the way around. Nobody. We stood there for a few minutes, absolutely nobody came. And we said, well, it seems like somebody picked it up to look at it or whatever, and they've put it down, they've left it. They clearly don't want it, they've just left it, abandoned it on this counter. So we picked it up again, very slowly, kind of looking around, making sure there was nobody else that was trying to claim the Doudou. And we took it back to the area that we were with our sales associate. And we said to him, he was there, and he was kind of, I think he was trying to see if there was another one available. And I said, look, we found her. I said, obviously, whoever picked her up decided they didn't want her. We found her. And he put her with my sunglasses so he could start the sort of checkout process for me. A moment after that, another sales associate came over, picked up the Doudou and said, this is my client's, she's buying it. He said, that's ours, my client's buying it. And she said, you know, you can't have it. And he was a little bit taken aback, and I just sort of said, oh, I said, but it was over there on its own. I said, nobody was with it. No, it's my client's, you can't have it. She was quite aggressive. I think obviously she was more senior than the sales associate we were with, because he didn't put up any sort of fight. He just accepted it, and that was it. Off she went, she took it. I think Debs was a bit put out by that. I was a bit put out. I was thinking at that point, did we do the right thing picking it up? I'd really appreciate you guys to perhaps give me your opinion on that. In that situation, if you had stood in an area that was completely deserted and there was an item there on the counter, nobody had seemed to claim it, nobody seemed to be wanting it, no one around, would you think it was okay to pick it up and say, yeah, I'm gonna buy this? I don't know. I mean, we honestly checked for a good few minutes that there was nobody around before we picked it up. So our sales associate was very kind of upset on our behalf and was apologetic. We were a bit okay, that was a bit weird, but you know, it had been abandoned. There was nobody with it, and we didn't think we were doing the wrong thing by picking it up. So we obviously said to the sales associate, do you have another? Is there another? Of course, no, there wasn't. That was the only one in Avenue Montaigne. I was like, okay. And I said, it's fine, it's okay. I said, I'd actually Googled it already on the Louis Vuitton UK website and see that it was available on the UK website. And I said to Debs and Lisa, it's fine. It's, you know, as I said, first world problems. I said, it's fine. I'll order it from the UK website. But Debs was, no, let's wait and see. So she said to the sales associate, are there any more in Paris? Any other stores got one? Yes, the Champs-Élysées. Champs-Élysées was the only store that had one. And she said, right, she said, come on, Claire, we're going to the Champs-Élysées. And I was like, no, it's fine, honestly, Deb, I don't want to drag you to the Champs-Élysées. You know, I'm okay with it. Lisa had to get to Samaritan because she had an appointment at the Samaritan Louis Vuitton. I was like, no, it's absolutely fine. Deb was no, she was a woman on a mission. And so I'm just going to say, and I'm probably going to repeat this again later as well, Debs is the sort of friend you want in your corner. She is the most amazing friend. She was on a mission. She knew that Le Doudou would make me happy, and she was determined that I was going home with a Le Doudou. You know, she was right, no, we are going to the Champs-Élysées. So we said to the sales associate, you know, obviously, if there's one at the Champs-Élysées, can you get it reserved for us? And he said, no, I can't do that. He said, but definitely when you go there, say that I sent you, say that, you know, I've told you there's one there, and hopefully if it's still there, you can buy it, and just say that you've come from this store and I've sent you there because, you know, we kind of ended up selling the last one here, etc, etc. So we said to Lisa, you go to your appointment, because she had a timed appointment. I said, we'll go over to the Champs-Élysées and we'll meet you at Samaritan. So me and Deb walked as fast as we could to the Champs-Élysées. We were on a mission, and we got to the Champs-Élysées store, and there was a short queue. It wasn't too bad, but there was a bit of a queue. And I said to Deb, well, I better stand at the end of the queue. And she said, well, I'm going to go up and just inquire to make sure they definitely still have got this item, and just to see what the situation is, because the sales associate did say we could, you know, say to them that he'd sent us, sort of thing. So I just got to the end of the queue. Deb went to the front of the queue and just asked a couple of the people that were standing, you know, letting people in and out. And one of the guys that was letting people in and out directed her to a sales associate with one of the iPads. And I think they looked and they confirmed, yes, they did have the item, it was available. And then she said to Deb, you can come in and go straight to a sales associate to buy it. I don't think Deb was expecting that, but obviously Deb had, you know, used her charm. She was very polite. She was explaining that we'd been sent from Avenue Montaigne to get this particular item, and the sales associate obviously was very kind and said, yes, you can come in, you don't have to queue. So Deb came out, waved at me and said, come on, we can go in. And I sort of walked past the queue. I thought, I'm not looking at the queue, I'm not going to make eye contact with anybody in the queue in case they're annoyed that I've somehow jumped the queue. I want to really get across that it's not something that, you know, we would normally do. You know, we would not normally feel entitled to jump a queue and go straight into Louis Vuitton or anything like that, and I was fully prepared to queue. It's just that Deb had gone up and just inquired as to whether this item was there, because she obviously didn't want us to queue for, you know, however long and get to the front of the queue and find it wasn't there anyway. So she'd inquired, she told them what the sales associate at Avenue Montaigne had told her to tell them, and they had said, yep, come on in. So, you know, we were very, very grateful that they did that. That was really nice of them to do that, you know, and I'm so grateful to Deb for doing that. You know, as I said, she is an amazing friend. She said, you know, she wouldn't have done that for herself, but she will do it for somebody else. She was, you know, she knew that I wanted this item, and she was on a mission to make sure that I got it. So, you know, I've said it to her in person, but, you know, I'm going to say it on camera. Thank you, Deb. You know, you are amazing. Because again, I probably wouldn't have done that if it was just me on my own. I would have stood in the queue and just waited, and then possibly been disappointed when I got to the front of the queue. So yeah, so, you know, we jumped the queue at the Champs-Élysées. I'm sorry to anyone that was in that queue. It was quite a short queue and it was moving quite quickly. So I don't think we got in much before many other people. And it isn't something we'd normally do. So please don't, you know, don't have a moan at us about entitlement and, you know, etc. in the comments, because it genuinely was a surprise that they did that for us. I don't know. I mean, as an aside, Deb was wearing her P9 Speedy. That bag definitely does get noticed in Louis Vuitton when you walk in with it. I know there's probably some people out there that, you know, don't agree with that, but obviously when a brand, and this isn't just Louis Vuitton because this happened to me in Fendi as well, when a brand notices that you are wearing, you know, items from the brand, and fairly prestigious, high, expensive items from the brand, they know that you have a relationship with the brand. They know that, and you know, yes, they should provide a good level of customer service to everybody, from, you know, somebody who's never bought from them before to people who buy from them all the time. But I guess those people that do buy the higher end items, that do buy from them all the time, they do notice that, and they do go that little extra mile for you. And I guess perhaps, you know, possibly the P9 opened a door there, and they did go the extra 9 for Debs. As I say, it happened to me in Fendi. I walked into Fendi a few days beforehand. I was wearing my Fendi Mama Baguette, my Fendi Strap U, I had on my Fendi slides. The sales associate clocked me straight away that I had walked into Fendi and I was wearing Fendi items, and she immediately came over to me. She started talking to me about my bag. She started talking to me about, you know, other things that I own from Fendi, and she obviously knew that I loved Fendi. She knew that I bought from the brand, and she, you know, was happy to serve me, and she knew I was probably going to buy something in that boutique from the brand, because obviously I liked Fendi. So, you know, you can understand why sales associates do, you know, notice that sort of thing. They notice whether you already are somebody who is potentially going to buy from the brand, I guess. As I say, you know, that's just as an aside. So we went into the Champs-Elysees store. We were directed to go upstairs, and we went upstairs again expecting to wait for a sales associate, but there was actually this lovely sales associate that was available. She was free, and we showed her the item on the phone and told her what we wanted, and she said, yep, she said, please wait here and I'll go and have a look. She did go away for a little bit, and then she came back empty-handed, so I thought, oh, looks like it's maybe already gone. Then she went to this counter and she pulled out the beige one, and she said, we have this one. And I said, oh no, I'm sorry, I really want the pink one. I looked at the beige one. The beige one was cute, but I thought, no, it's the pink one I fell in love with. And I thought, again, I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to buy the beige one just because they've got the beige one. If they've not got the pink one, fair enough. And then she had another look and she said, I think we've got the pink one down in the stock room. She said, we've definitely got one, and I think it's down in the stock room. Do you mind waiting another 10-15 minutes? I said, no, absolutely not. So we waited, and it was a good 15-20 minutes, and she came back and she had this one with her, and I was thrilled. So there was my Doudou. So I said, yes, I want to buy that. She rang it up for me. I paid, sorted everything out. It was sitting there. She hadn't boxed it up. In the meantime, Deb was asking her about some scarves, because Deb was going to go back to Galeries Lafayette and buy this scarf that she really wanted, but she thought, I'm here in Champs-Elysees, this sales associate is lovely. She said, if I can give her another sale, I will. And she asked her if she'd got the scarf she wanted. So she went off, got some scarves and brought them back for Deb's. There was one actually that she unfurled, and she said, oh, I'm sure you're going to love this. And as she unfurled it, the first thing I saw was pink, and the second thing I saw was a great big bird. And we were really laughing, because if you know Deb, they are the two things she really doesn't like, pink and birds. We just were like, no, I know you thought she'd love it, but no. She was like, I don't do pink and I don't do birds. But having said that, she then brought out another scarf, and that was the exact one that Deb had wanted. I think initially she said we don't have it, but she'd managed to find it. So this sales associate was amazing. I mean, she was one of the only sales associates in Paris that we encountered that could actually find things we'd asked for. So we got her details, and yeah, if we ever go back to Champs-Elysees in Paris, we will definitely be seeing her again. So Deb was then over at the till paying for her scarf. The Doudou was still sitting on the counter. I had paid for it at this point. There were some women just along the counter from me. They were drinking champagne. They were buying bags. They were looking at bags, and they were purchasing bags with another sales associate. One of the women came over. She picked up my Doudou and she said, oh, can I have a look at this? And I, politely as I could, grabbed her back and said, actually, I've already bought this. I said, this is mine. I said, you can look at her. I said, but I have already bought it. I thought, I've actually paid for this now. I'm not losing it again. And it was just like, you know, I couldn't believe that this Doudou was so in demand by other people. And then I said to the lady, she said, it's very cute, isn't it? I said, yes. I said, they do a beige one. I said, they've got the beige one under the counter. I said, if you want one, they've got the beige one. Obviously, silently, I was going, you can't have this one. This is the last one in Paris. This is mine. So yeah, so I nearly lost Le Doudou for a second time, and that was after I'd actually paid for her. And then the sales associate came over, she took Le Doudou, she took Deb's scarf, and she went off and she packaged them. She came back with the Louis Vuitton bags and boxes, and I finally had Le Doudou in my hands, wrapped up in a box, in a bag, and we were obviously very, very grateful to her. As I say, got her details, and we left, and then we went and met Lisa at Samaritain. So yeah, so that's my stories around my Louis Vuitton items, and in particular, how blimmin' difficult it was to get my hands on this Le Doudou. It was funny, we've laughed about it ever since. It's given us some fun memories. As I said on my unboxing, this will sit on this little unit in my dressing room. Every time I walk into my dressing room, I will see her. She's next to my New York picture as well, and I will just remember what a great time I had in Paris, what a mad day that was with Deb and Lisa, you know, going from Louis Vuitton store to Louis Vuitton store, you know, trying to get our hands on this ridiculous little cuddly toy. But I love her, she's so cute. And yeah, a lot of the comments in my video where I unboxed her, they were very positive. You all loved her too. You said she was very cute, and you said, you know, luxury is supposed to be fun, it's supposed to be ridiculous. You know, we don't need these items, of course we don't. If you're fortunate enough to have the money to purchase these, then why not if it makes you happy? And she makes me happy, great memories, and I love her. So yeah, so I hope you've all enjoyed my story time. If you have, please give the video a thumbs up. Please comment down below if you've got anything to say about it. Yeah, and thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye everyone.